Shout out on any highlights so far for the week.
Open Trails.
Open Trails, yeah, that was good. What else?
Tim was pretty cool.
Tim was cool, yeah, definitely, yeah. And it's really funny because when I do presentations, I actually lead off with a slide from Tim's, not from his slide deck, from the essay that he was quoting. So we're going to see some of that. It's kind of like really embarrassing. I had Alan Shark and Tim O'Reilly, and it's like they both stole 3/4 of what I'm going to be talking about this morning. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Mark Leech. Apologies about the accent. I'm actually from East Texas, also known as England. I've been here for 13 years, and I'm the Application Services Group Manager for the City of Albuquerque. Going to be talking about open data, so if anybody's in the wrong session, now's a good chance to leave. I'm going to be taking it at a really high level, so if you want to talk specific formats, all the technical gore and blood and guts and all that kind of stuff, maybe it's kind of like we'll pick up on that at the end. And I really want today to be a challenge. If you're not doing open data, I want to challenge you to do stand up an open data portal. I want you to have an open data initiative, and I really want you to commit to doing this. If you've already got an open data portal, but maybe this was a mayoral initiative and we just kind of like check the box, yeah, mayor, right, we're done, next thing. I want to challenge you that you're not getting full use and full utility out of your open data portal. So I want to challenge you to make it better. And if you already have an open data portal, and it's active and you've got folk engaged and great things are happening, I really appreciate you doing that. It's wonderful. This is a growing movement. But I want to challenge you to go to the next level. I do soccer coaching past couple of years. I've taken a break for last year. But one of the things that we really do with the kids is we'll take you from where you are, and I want to move you up a level. So hopefully there's going to be something in here for practitioners, there's going to be something in here for real expert users, but there's going to be something in here for people who've not stood up an open data platform ever, haven't a clue what open data is. I want to make sure that you guys walk away with something useful from this. Okay? So I want to do a quick hands up straw poll. How many of you have heard of open data? Yeah, okay. How many of you have an open data portal? 1, 2, Susie's kind of like, not quite sure. Okay, so this is really cool. The number of people with open data portals, every time I do this session, it goes up every year, and that's really exciting because open data is a way of really bridging the gap between citizens and government. I want to pick up on what Tim was talking about yesterday, and it's kind of like really, he really inspired me kind of like a few years ago when Albuquerque started its open data platform to really think about why do we do open data? And Tim, you remember, was talking about government's platform, and basically he says that citizens who are connected, talented, and passionate about solving problems, if you put that together with government delivering services and information when and where requested, great things can happen. We can have innovation and improved governance. And I don't know a mayor in the US today who wouldn't want innovation, who wouldn't want improved democratic engagement. Maybe there are a few, you know, but by and large, they're down on this whole innovation thing. Now the question is, before we even go anywhere, do we have citizens who are connected on tablets and devices? Answer? Yes. Yes, we do. Okay. Do we have talent in the US? Do we have talent in our communities? Talented folk who can program, who can develop, who can do really cool stuff, who can dream big dreams. Do we have those people in the US? Yeah, I'm seeing a few nods, great. Are our citizens passionate? Yeah, okay, I'm getting a few nods, yeah. Okay, I'm going to get over the kind of like mental roadblock of government delivering useful information to people, and let's imagine that we actually do that on a regular basis. One of the value adds for open data is that if I put data, useful data that citizens are going to use into the hands of those citizens, then they're going to be able to do things with that. Okay? Now it's important to notice what Tim didn't cover is that you have the kind of like the transparency geeks kind of like saying, yes, absolutely, amen, this is what we want, you know, we want all this open government. And we want all the data. And on the other side, you've got the government attorneys who are going, you can't have this because of this exception here, and kind of like there's, you know, they're going to meltdown over it. It's important to realize that open data is a point of compromise. Nobody gets everything. Yeah? If a government takes payment information, you don't want government giving your credit card information out. You don't want government giving personally identifiable information out there. Yeah? So we have to just kind of like, okay, calm down. Government's open data is a great tool. You're not going to get everything by a lot, but by contrast, government has to realize that it has to open its doors and give citizens information to basically what it might consider as the crown jewels. And the goal then is that we have citizens who are kind of like taking more control over what happens. They may be creating apps based on open data. They may be asking really cool questions. They might be learning really cool ideas. And I'm going to go through a little bit later on and actually show you how some of the great user bases or user communities that we have here in Albuquerque and how they use open government. Okay. Okay, quick primer. It's going to be about a 30-second primer here. What is open data? Open data is raw machine readable data. It's not the web page. I've got to make this clear because people are saying, well, I published all that stuff on our web page. Yeah, you're being open, don't get me wrong, but it's not consumable by a machine. So we're looking at CSV files, we're looking at text files, we're looking at JSON, we're looking at kind of like things that computers can load, and import, and do things with. It's going to be free for everyone. Okay? Open data is not in a folder somewhere stuck right the way behind down on your website, deep down. It's going to be available. It's not going to be password protected because that's the other thing I've heard about. Well, yes, we publish our data. You just have to apply to us for a password. Open data means open. I'm not going to lock this stuff away. It's also available 24/7. In other words, where a city hall stops at 5 p.m. or in some cases 3 p.m., we're actually going to make this 24/7, 365 days a year. If you want to go and download our data from, I don't know, Nepal or somewhere like that, have at it, go do it. As long as you've got a connection, you grab our data, you're done. It's also non-proprietary. Okay, that's an important thing. I'm going to make it I'm going to make the data available in formats that people can easily understand. Okay, and easily load. You hear a lot, for example, about Esri files, Esri shapefiles. I'm sorry, Esri shapefiles is a proprietary format. We don't make our data available in Esri format. Yeah. So again, Microsoft Word files. Proprietary, I can't do that. Excel files, I can't do that. But I can make them available in CSV files. I can use other data formats that are freely available. And most importantly of all, it's minimal licensing or no licensing at all. A lot of data that we use in City Hall is it's by the people, for the people. The people own this data in the first place. So why should we be then restricting them in the way that they can then use the data that they already own? Okay. Important thing to realize is there are some minimal restrictions. You're not going to do bad stuff with it, yeah, obviously. But where possible, we're going to really lower the barriers for entry on this one. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this available. I'm trying to make it so that it's lower the barriers for the community to get the data and just make that data available to you. Come get that data. This is an asset. You've got to come, and it's almost like being a sales guy at this point. You know, come use our data. Show me how you use that data. I want you to use my services. So real quick, what could be good data, good open data? And this is something that we're actually going through right now with the City of Albuquerque. Anything that will be released as part of an open records request without redaction is a good candidate for open data. Okay? So if you guys right now are suffering under inspection of public records requests, yeah, take a look through your call drivers. Find out if there's stuff that the legal guys go, doesn't need to come through me to review. Take a look and see if it's will be given to you anyway, yeah, and then make it available. That's actually a good candidate because the legal guys aren't going to worry about it, and you're actually going to help the department out because you're going to be making it available, so they don't have to take the phone call. Yeah, so kind of like a win-win situation. Great story on that for us was vehicle pollution data. The department actually came to us and said, you know what? We're fed up of having to email Carfax each week with all the data from our pollution websites, from our pollution collection stations. Is there anything that you can do to help us? Well, we actually kind of like pulled the string a little bit on that one, and it turns out that not only do they give it to Carfax, but they will give that same data to anybody else who requests it. Yeah. Thing is, they're always emailing this data back, and somebody has to sit there, You know what it's like when you're in Outlook. You kind of like open up the file, write the email, attach the file, and we're doing this each time somebody asks us for this data. So what we did was we made that data available to everybody. And now Carfax can come to our website, grab the data, they're happy. Anybody else can grab the data, they're happy. And actually it turned out that students over at University of New Mexico, the local college, we do a lot of work with those guys, they took that data for one of their projects and did a whole presentation on some of the stuff they found. And for example, if you've got an automatic car, certainly in Albuquerque, you end up with less emissions than if you had a stick shift. Didn't know that. Yeah. Would I have thought about going after that data? No, but it worked out. Yeah. And this is a cool thing. We were able to help the pollution guys because now they don't have to worry about sending out all those emails each time. Click, 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 click. We were able to help the university out because they were looking for projects to take on. Bang, everybody's a winner on that one. So where does open data come from? Where do open data initiatives start? I'm going to paint with a really broad brush on this one. But really, open data comes from kind of like three main places. Open data might get started as a result of a brainwave in the administration. You know, somebody might have a rush of blood to the brain and start reading books and say, hey, you know what, we're going to have an open data platform. A lot of initiatives start from that. We also see IT departments, they'll be saying, hey, you know, we hear about this open data, we'd really like to do that, we believe there's value in looking cool and doing the right thing, so we'll drive it. There's also a third group, and Philadelphia is a great original example of that. It starts in the community. So sometimes the community says, you know what, we want our data. We want access to the data. And when they work with the local government, they might take the data from the local government, host it on a website, make that data available. And you know what? Really, it doesn't matter how these get started. The important thing is that somebody said, yes, we've got the data. Somebody else said, yes, we can use it. We put the two together, and great things start to happen. In the case of the city of Albuquerque, actually it was kind of like a little bit of mostly agency, some administration. So we were kind of like right in that center circle over just there. Community was not so much. We had to do a lot of kind of like legwork to get those guys kind of aware of what we were doing. But really you need the community involved. And then great things can happen off that. Okay. So this is based on the Code for America Open Data Playbook. I actually contributed to this. This is about a year ago now. I'm going to show some of the kind of like the highlights on this, and I'm going to go into kind of like where it needs. I think it needs to improve. So really, when you're doing open data, all you're going to do is you're going to find the data, and then you're going to publish it, and that's it. It's not difficult. Okay? All right? You're going to find the data and you're going to publish it. And really, that's it. Because there's this big myth that open data is complex, open data is difficult. No, you get the data, you publish the data. It's exactly what we did with VPMD. There's a couple more phases I want to go through. It doesn't show up terribly well here, but we've got some dotted lines. You're going to want to get departmental buy-in. Really, we treat ourselves in Albuquerque as the stewards of data for the departments. And so if there's any kind of like complicated question that kind of like isn't just about the ones and zeros, we'll punt those questions off to the department. So as kind of like a matter of courtesy, we actually got the department, we'll always get department buy-in before we go and release. Great example, I'm going to keep coming back to this one, is salary. If you've got a question about somebody's salary, you don't want to ask the tech guys, because we're just going, I don't know, floating point number, we're done. You're going to want to talk to the HR folk. And the HR folk kind of like can then explain, what does salary mean? Are there any limitations? Second thing you're going to want to do is to build a team. Now for smaller organizations or situations where you're very centralized with your IT department, you might already have that team in place. If you like the city, what we do is we matrix, which basically means that we'll bring people in for specific projects. So if I'm doing a project, say for example on pollen, I'll bring somebody who knows about pollen, somebody who knows about databases. I'll bring those guys in and say, right, okay, here's your project, you're off. And those guys will work together just as a team, just for a short period of time, put the data together, and then publish it. And that's really their role's finished. Then we hand it back to the department. Establishing a platform. Open data efforts, I was already talking about this. Open data efforts can range hugely in their cost. I'm hearing quotes for some of the larger communities of $400,000 annually. Don't wig out about that. That's the exception. City of Albuquerque, we stood our open data initiative up with, wait for it, $1,500. Okay, it's more manageable? Yep. Okay, $1,500. And that $1,500 was actually marketing. So it wasn't even technical stuff. And basically we built our open data initiative just out of tools that we had lying around the house. Yeah, we use Apache for serving the content. We use Esri Stack for the geospatial information. We use our enterprise reporting tool for CSV, and basically just use what you've got. Don't feel obligated necessarily to go and spend the big bucks. If you've got the big bucks and your community demands it, fine, have at it. Who am I to say? But really, don't be intimidated by some of the dollar tags. Yeah, standing up, I'm going to come back to this, standing up an open data initiative is just a question of establishing the data sets and publishing the data sets. That's all you're trying to do here. Yeah. And if you read the open data playbook from Code for America, it's a great document. It really is a great document. We also talk about community engagement in there. Bring your community along as soon as you can. You'll notice that basically as soon as I've established a platform, I'm going to start talking to the community. I'll talk a little bit more later on about what does community actually mean. The problem, I think, is when we don't do that, what can happen is kind of like you have the press release, Mayor makes his announcement from the TV, you know how that's all going to go, hey, we've got open data. And then you hear crickets, because nobody's really prepared for it, nobody's got those apps, nobody's kind of like thinking, hey, what can we do with this data? Then all of a sudden you hear the drip drip of complaints, say it's not in this format, it should be in that format. Well, yeah, okay, fine, now you're telling me. And you end up in this kind of like really reactive mode. So if you can bring in your community earlier, that's the better way of doing it. And maybe bringing community means you actually have to go and do some legwork, and I'll come on to that later as well. On the other hand, you might already have an established technical community. Yeah? If you do, reach out to them, get them involved. They are really good sounding boards for where you should be going. Because really, as much as anything, they're one of your consumers of this data. And then you can make sure that you're aligning what you're doing with their needs. Okay. Final two things. The Code for America playbook talks about administration buy-in and open data policy. I'm actually marking those as optional. The reason is, administration, if they really don't care about open data, and they haven't explicitly said no, don't worry about getting buy-in. Yeah, they might not be interested in this, it might not be on their agenda. Yeah? It's easy enough to stand up a small open data portal and say, hey, Mayor, it's proof of concept. We're going to make you look really good when we go and do all these other things. Yeah? So you can stand it up as a proof of concept. It's a great way of kind of like experimenting. Yeah? And I think kind of like building on what Alan was just saying right now, earlier on, we've got to, as a government professionals, we've got to get more fearless about what we do. We've got to not be afraid of experimenting. And experimenting is okay as long as you learn from it if it goes wrong. Right? And the final part, this is something that I think the playbook missed, blame me for that one, curation. What is curation? Well, if you think about kind of like a museum, curation means understanding stuff about the particular artifact in question, right? How did the museum get hold of it? When was it made? Is there any story behind it? All that kind of information. And really, most of what you're going to be doing once you've stood up an open data platform is managing the curation. Sounds scary, it's not scary. I'll show you kind of like what we do a bit later on. But the problem is that if you don't do that, data is not something that just sits there. Data changes. Systems come in and go out. People change. Yeah, and Alan's already talked this morning about kind of like what happens when the millennial leaves and takes all the passwords with them. It's the same with data sets. We had a great example of early on, and we're getting better in the way we deal with this now. But all of a sudden, I'm getting phone calls because a data set's not available. I'm going, what the heck? I went and set this up about 6 months ago. It was fine then. What's going on? Turned out that the department had gone and pulled the plug on the server, changed the server out, and changed the system as well at the same time. Not told anybody because, nobody uses this. This is just an internal one. Forgotten about the role that open data is playing. That kind of like, no, all this is now actually on the outside. Yeah, and all of a sudden we're dealing with the phone calls. So things happen. I understand that, and be aware of that. Again, don't let it stop you, but just be aware that data is not static. It's not point in time, or rather, it is point in time. Okay, so I'm going to give about 4 tips on bootstrapping open data. Audience. Who is your audience? If you don't understand why you're doing an open data portal, it's not going to work. It's just going to be that checkbox on the mayor's list and yep, we're done, finished. He asked us to dump all this stuff out there, I've done my bit, doesn't matter to me. Understand who your audience is and understand what their goals are. Same point. If I understand how people are trying to use that data, I might be able to help them. I might change my data format. I might change the way I'm presenting the data or the way I'm updating the data. I can work with my community. It's not kind of like a them versus us. Yeah, it's actually quite a nice position. I can kind of like help the community do stuff, which is shock horror. Who is the audience of the audience? A lot of the time we find out that people are using data, but then they're using the data for somebody else. And you end up with this whole chain that person might be taking it and doing something with that data, and they might be using it for something else. And there's this whole chain that can emerge. So who's the audience of the audience? If I know that somebody over here is going to be using the data and passing it to somebody over there, really I ought to be as interested in the person over there to make sure they're getting the data in the easiest possible way. Yeah? So it behooves me as somebody who provides data, as somebody who provides a service, to make sure that not only am I fulfilling your needs, but I'm also fulfilling your needs over there. So my challenge, if you've got an open data website set up, if you have an open data initiative, my challenge to you is, when did you last meet your audience? Okay? More importantly, when did you last listen to your audience? And I don't just mean, oh yeah, the audience is out there, great, wonderful, fine. I mean, sit down, have a coffee, go to Starbucks, and say, how do you use your data? What are the things that are working? What are the things we're doing right? Where are the areas that we can improve? We're providing a service as government officials. Yeah? If we're not providing the service, people will go elsewhere. Yeah? They will let us know. Yeah? So my challenge to you is to get out, find out who your audience is. More importantly, listen to your audience. They will tell you. They will tell you nicely, actually. They will tell you whether or not the data is of sufficient accuracy. And believe it or not, 100% accuracy isn't important a lot of the time. Yeah? They will say it's more important that we get the data out and into the hands of the community than it's absolutely right. And I've heard this time and time again when I've been speaking, not only here but also different places around the country. People will come up to us and say, yes, absolutely, get the data in the hands of the community. More eyes on it, we can help you spot more mistakes. Okay, so there's my challenge about audience. Okay. Tip number 2 is to focus on outcomes. Okay. Again, I don't know how he did it, but Alan Sharp must have been sneaking a look at these presentation these slides, because again, he was talking about outcomes and metrics today. So I want to really think about what is an outcome, and I don't really mean standing up an open data platform is an outcome. I don't really mean, yeah, I had 4 downloads of this particular data set. That's not an outcome. I'm going to challenge you here, and I'm going to say outcomes are things that matter in the community. How did I make my community life better? That's an outcome. Did I reduce high school dropout rate? Did I reduce drug overdoses? Really, really focus on the things that matter in your community. Okay? So I've divided these into kind of like 2 kind of columns here. External is basically things that matter to people outside the community, outside in the community, and internal is things that matter inside City Hall. Okay, you're going to notice a lot of crossover on this one, which is kind of like, makes sense when you think about it. So external folk, they want to make the community life better. Yeah, by and large, people here, and this is based on 13 years of experience right now. people in America, they really want to make life better for themselves. It's not like kind of like, you know, we're happy with what we've got. They want to make the community a better place than when they found it. And if we operate from that perspective, our dialogues go better. I'm not in that adversarial kind of like, you know, it's them versus me, and only I can tell you how things ought to work. No, we're both trying to build a better community. And I think when you go at it from that perspective, your conversations go a lot better, because guess what? We're not fighting each other. We're actually working together on something bigger, and that's important, especially these days. External folk like to be curious, believe it or not. I've had some great conversations with folks, certainly in Albuquerque. They didn't know how government works. They're curious, how did that data get out there? Yeah? And it's not because it's like, how did that data get out there? No, they're genuinely interested. They want to find out. They want to find out how City works. Yeah? Being curious is part of who we are. It's part of our DNA. It's part of being a human being. Yeah? And recognizing that and having those dialogues is going to make it a lot more profitable. Another driver for external folk is to get stuff done. Okay, people aren't there to admire the bytes on your open data sets. Yeah, I know this may come as a shock to a lot of people. They're there to ride the buses, and even when they're riding the buses, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get to the hospital for that doctor's appointment. They're trying to get to work so they can make ends meet for the child that they've got, because they're a single parent maybe. They're trying to access housing services. They're trying to access information, medical information or service information to help them have better outcomes in that community. This stuff really matters. If it's not about kind of having those impacts, we shouldn't really be doing it. Yeah? Really be focused on the outcomes that matter to the community. Folk also like to tell stories. We've had a lot of that recently. Some of those stories are good, believe it or not, in government, in the public. Some of them are bad. But by and large, people, they don't know about what goes on in government. They want to find out, and they want to tell those stories. Look, this is how our community has changed. Certainly in Albuquerque, we've got the beginnings of a thriving startup culture, and that's really exciting. And being able to move the dial on that is one of the big wins, certainly from my perspective of open data. And one of the things that I do is, if somebody's got a question about open data and they're trying to start up a new company or whatever it is, I'll go and do coffee with them and go and sit down and talk and say, hey, you know, what are you trying to do? Oh, right, yeah, we've got a data set over here. You know, line you up, good. Let me know if you find anything, and we're good to go. Maybe we haven't got the data set. Where can they go for that data set? And I'll try and help them through. Sometimes we'll publish another data set as a result. Sometimes it's just a question of lining them up with somebody else. And we'll try and somehow move that, move the needle on that. Imagine if the person walking outside your window was the next Steve Jobs or the next Bill Gates. Yeah? That's a startup culture. You never know. So get out, find out what people are trying to do with your data, find out how they use it. Folk are also trying to earn a living. I think that's important. Yeah? If we want a thriving community, we've got to find ways of getting folk to earn that living. How can I help them? One of our early apps was actually publishing the GTFS transit data. And one of our early apps that built off that was one that actually just displayed the locations of the buses. And I think last night, certainly on my Twitter feed, people from NAGW had actually found out about ABQ Ride. Yeah? And if you go, if you download their app, you can actually see the location of the buses. That's all based on open data. It's making sure that people get on the bus at the right time, or they can stay in work, or they can get to work. Yeah? It's joining those dots. Finally, people want to learn something. You know, again, I've tackled this a little bit with curiosity. But the other thing that we're finding out that's really interesting is our student population actually want to make a difference, and they want to learn to be better. They don't necessarily want to go out of state. They want to stay here, and they want to learn, and they want to be the best they can. And one of the ways that open data helps them do that is by making that data available and giving them projects and ideas. I found out the other day that one of our data sets, the Wi-Fi data locations, actually gets used by the local university as a kind of like the capstone for a 100 series course on writing web apps. Yeah, so they'll actually give you the data feed. They've told you how to do maps. Okay, right there you go. Go write a map on that. Yeah. Okay, so that's the external. I want to actually turn around to the internal. And again, I'm going to operate from the position in this. The internal folk aren't lazy, aren't the typical stereotype what government is and all that kind of stuff. I want to operate instead and say internal city employees are there because they want to make community life better. Yeah? I've talked to a lot of agencies up and down the country, and I can honestly say that city employees do not come usually to just sit on a chair and stare at a white wall and that's it. They actually have a passion to serve, and they have a passion to make community life better. And again, when you operate from that kind of a dialogue, getting with users who might have, or getting with internal users who might have data that you need to unpick, getting with users who might be resistant to giving you that data, if you operate from that perspective, those conversations go a heck of a lot better. Hey, I'm going to make it better for you. I'm going to show you how much of a success you can be, and here we go. And again, let's not say that city employees are, the stereotypical kind of like, lazy employees. We're not. We always want to do things more efficiently. We know that from the recent downturn in the economy. Yeah, more than ever, we have got to get more efficient at what we do. City folk, especially what I'm seeing right now in Albuquerque, they are really interested in new ways of doing things. And that's not really kind of like typical government attitude, right? Wanting to try new things. But we're seeing it. They want to get stuff done. Alan's already kind of like this morning put up a slide about how much compliance we have to deal with. Yeah, we've got procurement regulations, we've got credit card regulations, we've got Section 508, we've got all these things coming at us. And really, at the end of the day, those line of business departments just want to get stuff done. They want to be profitable. They want to help citizens. They don't want all the rubbish of bureaucracy and all the kind of like really bad stuff. They want to get positive stuff done. Okay? They want to tell stories too. They want to say what their department's doing, because sometimes as government it's very difficult to actually be able to tell those stories again when you're stacked up against the media at 10 p.m. Hey, here's how the government's been doing some really bad stuff and city employees got busted doing X, Y, Z. How can I tell the story that actually we've been making more locations available for school lunches, or that I now have homework diners where kids can come and get help with homework? How can I tell that story when I'm stacked up against a lot of the negative stuff? Open data can help that because it lets the community drive that narrative. Yes, innovate as an internal city driver. Believe it or not, we do have city employees, and again, it blows me away dealing with these folk. We've got some smart folk in city government. Yeah, not just in Albuquerque, but nationwide. We've got some really, really smart folk who want to try different things. They're not afraid to push the envelope and experiment. Yeah. And I really think if city government's going to kind of like grow over the next few years, we've got to get that culture of innovation. We've got to get that culture of experimentation. We've got to make it okay to try stuff out. Yeah. There's a new disease. I'm going to be the person who identified it, and it's called investigative reporteritis. And basically, what happens in that, yeah, is that as soon as the investigative reporter comes in and says, "What are you doing there?" everything grinds to a halt because you daren't make anybody look bad. Yeah. We've got to get over that. We do a lot of good stuff. We shouldn't be afraid of our own shadow. Finally, measurement. Again, Alan's talked about measurement already. There's a lot of push right now on dashboards. Hands up if you have a dashboard initiative underway or planned. Yeah, there we go. Okay, a lot more people are going to be doing that over the next few years. One of the reasons is because it's a great way of promoting accountability between government and the community. Yeah, we can't measure what we don't know. City government is absolutely hopeless sometimes for measuring accurately. Yeah, I'm working on a project right now that wants to kind of like get some redress on the cost of providing a given service. I'm not going to say what that service is. The problem is that we've got anecdotal evidence that people are spending hours on this service. Well, how do you know? Well, it must be because I've got 4 people. I've just asked for another 4 people to go and help out here, and it's a catastrophe. Okay. How much are you really spending on it? Well, no, how much are you really spending on it? Okay, I'll go through my emails and check. End of conversation. Okay, fine, you don't know. And then I have on the other hand, basically same process. I have people sitting there going, well, I don't really spend any time on this process. Oh, are you sure? I saw you on the phone the other day talking, and it seemed to be kind of like a request process. Oh, that. No, that was nothing. Okay. Those that's, how much do they add up? Well, I'm kind of like there for a good 20 hours. Okay, now all of a sudden it starts to add up, right? We're not doing a good job of measuring, okay? If I can actually use open data to help measure, I can say where I am. It might not be a good place where I am, but at least I can say where I am, and I can show how that needle starts to move. Okay, my third tip here, collaboration. Who do you collaborate with when you've got an open data set, or open data initiative, I should say? And the answer is absolutely everybody, yeah? Find out who you need to be collaborating with. It could be, you know, just go wild, dream, surprise me, yeah? It could be other agencies. It could be higher education. We have a great partnership right now with UNM, University of New Mexico, one of the two big universities in the state. And they're great to work with. We'll go and try things out. Yeah, I'll go and speak over there periodically and kind of like, you know, for example, I'll talk to the big data guys. I'll talk to the public arts guys. I'll talk to architecture guys. And the idea is we're trying things out. What about if we had a conversation? What happens if we had a data set that could do this? Well, what happens if we could do this, if we pulled in this agency over here? And being able to dream, being able to hope, and being able to have that vision, it's really, really motivating for certainly when you talk about outcomes. So all of a sudden, we've got these guys, the higher education guys, who are kind of like just sitting there churning students out. Now all of a sudden they've got a reason to do it, because we can give you guys projects, we can give you guys kind of like real world examples with real world data, where it's not gone right. Maybe the data isn't clean. Database guys, here you go, have at it. Now go read that. Geospatial guys, here's some real data. Now go play with that. Code brigades, if you have a code brigade, my advice is thank them for all the hard work they do. It's a volunteer organization come out of Code for America. They're a great bunch of people to work with. We have stood our code brigade up this week, this year, and this month they have just gained official Code for America certification. That's in a year, and these are great folk to work with. They've really got a passion for volunteering and doing work for the community, and it's been great working with these folk. Okay, hackathons. Anybody hosted a hackathon? A couple of people, only 2 people. No more hackathons, goodness me. We do hackathons periodically, but we've also got smarter about the way we do hackathons. Because we realized, certainly in Albuquerque, that people weren't prepared for what a hackathon did. And the first hackathon we ever did, we had, I want to say, 16 entries, 3 of which didn't compile. But that meant you were down to 13, and those 13, believe it or not, had a pretty good, the bar was so low, they had a pretty good chance of winning. We actually got a good winner out of it. But it was a really low bar. And I was fielding questions about, well, how do I do this in Java? Or how do I do this in JavaScript? Or, look, I'm running the hackathon. I'm not meant to be answering your entry for you. Okay? So we staggered through, we got a result, and Mayor was happy, and everybody went away, and they thought they'd done wonderful. And then the question came again about, I don't know, a week after we'd finished. When are you having the next hackathon? Really? I've just had to do a tutorial on kind of like, you know, on basic HTTP, and you're asking me now, when am I going to do the next one? So we really kind of like had a lot of internal soul searching about what to do. And again, this is where the higher education came to our rescue. Because we went to those guys and said, you know what, wouldn't it be great if you guys had an apps competition? And coincidentally they were. So what we said was, right, okay, fine. That apps competition, what happens if you embedded it within your computer course or your CS courses? Yeah? What happens then if you had the people who were leading the courses then preparing you for that submission, so that I can put the students right there in exactly the right place, so that if they've got questions, there's somebody they can go and talk to. And these guys, their eyes lit up. Great idea. So I finished judging the 2014 apps competition hackathon. Apps competition in it'd be about January this year. Okay, I think they had around about 30 entries or something like that, and they narrowed it down. The cool thing was everybody's code compiled. It was some really, really good entries. Yeah, everybody walked out of that who'd gone through that computer science course knew how to write apps. They could compile because they'd actually gone for something pretty cool. And guess what? UNM actually stumped up $13,000 in prize money on that. Okay, we made some serious bucks on that one. Now the city didn't have to pay. We were there as kind of like a technical and advisory capacity, but it was really cool. So hackathons proper, we will participate in them. We help out where we needed. Code for Albuquerque recently worked with AIG to do a hackathon or a create-a-thon to help other local charities and 501c3s. It's a great opportunity. Again, you know, we're starting this whole kind of like ecosystem of how can we do cool stuff for our community and really have that deep level impact. Collaborate with your local developers. I've just seen one of our local developers walk in over there. We work with our local developers pretty closely. I'm spending, I'd say, around about 50% of my time outside the office, talking to folk, talking to developers, finding out what they want. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether or not you're a seasoned C++ developer and you just want to know whether or not I can scale back the amount of data I'm downloading for a particular app. I'll have that conversation with you. Or you might be somebody who's at college. You just had this really cool idea for an app and you want to go talk about it. I'll still go out and I'll still make the time to listen to you. You never know where that next idea is coming from. You never know what's going to be the point that the community sparks at. And it'd be a shame if that Steve Jobs or that Bill Gates walked past your window and kept going and we couldn't help them. Okay, tip number 4, metadata. I want to change gears a little bit. This is a little bit more in the weeds, but I think certainly based on what happened on my Twitter feed last night, I think it's an important topic to start discussing. What is this? Can anybody tell me? What have I got across the top? Sorry? 35mm film. Okay, yep. It's movie roll, movie film. Yeah, anything like that. Yeah, and we know this because we've seen it, we've felt it, we've touched it. We've got, you know, everybody's seen this kind of thing before, or we've listened to that person over there. What's your name? Yeah. Okay, and we've all kind of like followed along like sheep. Yeah, it sounds reasonable. It's yeah. It seems like what it is. Yeah, so we're making an educated guess. Okay. But it's not that useful, is it? Okay? Why is it not useful? Just saying this is 35, this is a roll of movie film. Why is that not useful? Okay? It's just a piece of film. Especially if it's a movie roll, film's actually pretty long. Yeah? I don't know where I am in that film. I don't know what it's a film of. Yeah? Whiteness, apparently. Okay. Of course, the more astute of you will notice that this is the middle of the film of the 1953 Swedish art house movie Polar Bears in the Snow by that well-known Swedish director Lars Soderstrom, or whatever his name is. Yeah, and there are actually 2 polar bears in the snow, and this was the highlight of the movie. For metadata to be really effective, I've got to think about what kind of movie is this, apart from a boring one about whiteness. It's a movie about polar bears, apparently. Where in the movie am I? Okay, what's my frame number? What you know, is it reel 1, reel 2? Yeah, whereabouts am I? How many movies are there? Well, as it turned out, the Swedish director didn't make any more movies because he got lynched by the audience for being too boring. Yeah, but again, did he do any more? Who's in the movie? Have I got any actors at all? Is it animals? What kind of animals? What are the animals doing? As it turns out, they're chasing the director. Who directed it? Who produced it? And if you think about a movie, we can ask all these really cool questions, and possibly one of the greatest stores of this is actually IMDb, right? Yeah? It's not about movies as such, it's about that film. It's asking questions. What can you tell me about this film? Okay? So what I've done is I've taken that blank piece of film that everybody's going, yeah, this is really boring because it's kind of like, you know, just a bunch of whiteness. Yeah? And I've given it meaning. I've given it context. Okay? Metadata is about context. How can I describe that data? How can I give it that context and meaning? And if I have context, that means that my data all of a sudden becomes Useful, right? Wow, government providing useful information. We didn't just dump all that stuff on you and tell you to find your own way around this stuff. We're actually providing ways that you can understand that data. And I don't mean kind of like, just saying, yeah, this is a field called salary. Yeah? I want to actually explain what does salary mean. Okay, so that's what metadata is, kind of like at a really abstract level. We've talked about movies and done the polar bears to death. What does this mean for government data? So I want to, again, I'm going to use the two columns here. There's good metadata and there's bad metadata. Okay? Bad metadata is impossible to understand. Yeah? It's written so that I can't figure out what the heck is going on, and I'm sure they know their stuff, but I'm really sorry, it's late and I can't deal with it. Bad metadata allows fear, uncertainty, and doubt to creep in. I'm not being explicit in what does this data do. Salary information. What does salary mean? Yeah? Again, we've talked about the fact that data is kind of static. And if we do the metadata once and we never come back and revisit it, that's also problematic. We say, yep, we've done the exercise, it's done. Yeah? Now what happens if we make changes to the data that we're putting out there? Yeah? All of a sudden our metadata doesn't kind of like jive with what's going on. Uh-oh, problem. It's easy, especially with some of the data that we put out, to get defensive about it. And I'm going to say again, this is a challenge to people who've got metadata already out there. Don't be defensive. Be confident, be proud of what you're putting out there. Yeah? Say what works, really go and kind of showcase off what does this data do. And worst of all, is data that's incomplete. Oh my goodness, we've had this with one vendor. They said, yep, here you go, here's your metadata. And they showed us as a demo. Salary is a floating point number. And that was it. Okay. We all know what metadata is now. What questions could I ask about salary? Any ideas? Any takers? Okay. What should I be asking about salary?
What's the units?
What's the units? Very good. Okay. What else? Yep. What else?
Is there a range?
Range. Excellent. Yeah. Is it annual or is it monthly? Is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly? What else? Does it include tax? Does it include overtime? Yeah. Does it include garnishments? What are the benefits? Exactly that. Yeah. Incomplete documentation. Oh my goodness, we still see this so much that kind of like just stopping and saying yeah, it's a floating point number. That's not really what people are interested in. Many computer languages can actually figure out whether or not it's a floating point number for you, but they can't figure out whether or not salary is an hourly or a monthly or a yearly or whatever it is. Getting that extra layer of information about the data you're putting out there is so critical. If I don't do this, I'm locking away that data. I'm stopping people. I'm preventing them from getting at it. So good metadata is actually the opposite of that. Okay, it's helpful. Government being helpful, yeah, we'll have some of that. It's readable. The guidance I actually give to my teams are, if we have somebody who's calling us late at night saying, I haven't a clue about this, I can't understand it, we have failed in our communication. Yeah, because software developers, we always write kind of like during the day. Yeah, heck no, I'm writing at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. Yeah, I need to be able to get at that information. I need to be able to understand it even late at night. It meets the audience where they are. Great example of this is the information we do on crime stats. We don't assume that everybody knows about incidents. We don't assume that everybody knows about the federal UCR. So we'll explain and give links and provide information to kind of help you out, to help you try and understand that kind of thing. We explain assumptions. Again, I'm going to use the police incident data for that one. The assumptions kind of like, what is this data used for? What is it good for? What is it not good for? And for police incidents, having a rolling 180 days is great if you want kind of like up to the minute kind of like information on what's happening. Not so much if you want to do historical statistical analysis, and that's where you should go back to the federal UCR reports. So we'll explain all that. We'll try and help you out. We'll stop you from using it for the wrong reasons if we possibly can. It's like, no, don't go there. We'll deal with soft topics. We'll deal with things like, well, you know what, if you want to change things like the well-known ID on a REST endpoint, here's how you do it, because we've had a lot of calls around that. So we put a whole segment in, here's how you deal with that. We'll also deal with lifecycle. When was the data created? When was it updated? How often does it get refreshed? That kind of thing. And we'll deal with process. We'll even tell you a little bit about how that data was created. So again, the idea is I can make you more confident about that data. I can make you as a consumer more profitable about, in the way you're using it. Okay. Okay, audience participation time. Now you guys have been a tremendous audience and appreciate you, the kind of like, yeah.
Could you give some concrete examples of data sets that just kind of a list of things?
Sure, we do pretty well anything that we can imagine. Pollen data, location of buses. Let's think what else we got up there. Movie locations. Movie locations, if it was in public places. Salary information, crime incident reports, and the list goes on, pollution management. Okay, so I've got an exercise I want to do now, real quick. And I think we've still got time. This is going to be a high-speed exercise. We're going to divide into 4 groups, basically along those tables. So guys over here, you're going to go over there. Okay, and I'm going to ask people just to take one of these envelopes. Okay, thank you. Okay, take it. Anyone? Okay. Okay. And these are random envelopes, and as you open them up, you're going to notice that there's actually some crib notes in there. Feel free to open them up. Don't share them for now. Okay. Okay. Group 1. Because I'm going to explain how data works in the city. Yeah, and I'm saying city, it could be anywhere, in government. Okay. Okay.
Are we with you?
I think so.
Yeah. Basically, I'm looking for about 4 groups. Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, you have some crib notes about a particular artistic style, yeah? Don't share those with anybody outside your group. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a situation. One of you a situation, group situation, pull one out. Go. I have no idea what these are. I can blame my daughter for a lot of these. Okay, take one. Yep, pick anyone. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay, and I hope you've all got your drawing hats on today. Okay. Oh, yep. It's 1 per group. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you should have an artistic style and a situation. You're not going to share the situation with anybody outside your group. We're going to give you a pen, and you have about.
Can we read this out loud, or is that secret too?
No, it's just within the group. It's kind of like crib notes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Is the sandbox independent?
Okay.
Is the sandbox independent video game or
Okay. Color over here. Okay. Can anybody guess what I'm going to ask you to do? No. Okay. You're going to draw using the style that you've picked, the situation that you've picked on the piece of paper. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's
Right.
actually easy.
Okay.
What color pen do you want? How about blue?
All right. You've got 5 minutes. Go.
If I understand that correctly, right? We're drawing this.
Yep. Yep. The situation using the style on the big piece of paper.
We need the big piece of paper.
Okay. Let me get big. There you go. Okay. There's a lot of reading and thought going over here.
The funny part is if you draw it,
idea itself
Okay.
is the style.
All right. Which situation do you get? Oh, good luck with that. Okay. You've got under 5 minutes to do this because we've really got to move on here.
Yeah, you've got to.
That's why I got under 5 minutes. Okay.
3D representation of the old 80s video games that we all know.
4.5 minutes. To draw this in the style of that.
That's it. And we're supposed to do it as a group?
Yep.
Just draw the situation, not a solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
4 minutes.
With a faucet. You have a
Just to double check,
Yeah.
your belief of what this is,
Yep.
is
Whatever you tell me.
goes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't sometimes there's
Yeah. Yep.
different
Yep.
versions of those.
Yep.
So, we'll see.
She's good.
This is good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
So, I mean, in a little way,
3.5 minutes.
they look like so, no, okay, so, being changed by rule.
Yeah, you kind of have to have it.
So, is the person that now, I have to do that. So,
3 minutes.
somehow figure I think it would be.
Pressure's on, guys.
No, you're right. So technically, I think it's the first person.
2.5 minutes. Do you need another pen?
Okay then. Go, Susan, go.
Do you need another pen or anything?
Yeah, maybe an, oh, okay.
Okay, so
All right, do you need another one? Okay.
red or black.
Do you have any? I think that's beyond what we're trying to do here. What the? Excellent. Okay. Minute, coming up for a minute and a half here.
We're doubting your method, though.
One more minute. Under a minute left. Pressure's really on. I like all the engineers trying to plan stuff and kind of like, you know, do the whole lining in beforehand.
Can we get another merch? I'm gonna go over what you're making over here. Oh,
Okay, 30 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, there we go. All right, excellent. Okay, and the first thing is kind of like, that's actually a lesson in the way we often put data together within the organization. It's rushed, it's under pressure, we're not thinking about the future, right? Okay, right there. I'm going to go around and actually the reason that we're doing this is I'm going to explain how data flows through the city, okay, or through an agency, yeah? Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, hold up. Okay, all right, in the style of what? What's the style?
Looks Egyptian.
Okay, maybe, yep. Is it Egyptian?
Yep.
Okay, what's the situation?
Are you asking us?
No.
It's a kiln. It's a kiln. It's a
Lifestyle?
Time passing between Egypt and
A lot of questions going on here, right?
About time.
Something, yeah, okay. Okay, tell us, what is it?
It's traveling in time.
Traveling in time. Okay, very good, guys. Okay, right, our data travels in time.
Driving is good.
Yeah, our data travels in time. And then what happens to it? It goes over here, right? Okay, so what was the style? Maybe, yeah, surreal. Okay, surrealism's the right answer. Okay, right. What are you, okay, thoughts about what you're trying to do?
Fixing a drain.
washing dishes.
There's a calendar in May.
Okay, tell us, guys.
Their head in the trash can.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Head stuck in a garbage disposal.
For 1 week.
Okay, yeah. All right, so our data's travel in time. It's gone through a garbage disposal. Right, what's...
A little one.
Oh, really? What the heck? Okay, what was the style?
MC Usher.
Okay. Oh, right, okay, what are we trying to do?
It's really hard to see.
Boiled water.
A person standing on the edge of a cup. Animals interlaced.
Okay, go ahead.
Having tea with zebra.
Okay, so our data has gone backwards in time. It's got its head stuck through the garbage disposal. It's had tea with a zebra, and now lastly our data is going to... Any ideas over here? Cubist, okay, well, maybe. Minecraft, very good. Okay, all right. So what's our data, what's happening to our data here? What's going on? Any ideas?
Running of the bull.
Cattle drive.
Okay, okay,
Being chased.
what was it?
Chased by a herd of zebras across the city.
Okay, right, so end to end, let's find out what happened to the data in the city, right? Or in our government agency. Okay, it traveled backwards in time. It's got its head stuck down a garbage disposal for a week. It had tea with a zebra. And what was it? It got chased by a herd of African wildebeest. Amen if our data in city goes through weird stages like that. Yes, true? Is that what happens? Okay, this is why we need to do a better explanation of the way data flows, and this is why we need better metadata. Yeah? Okay? All right. I'm going to close real quick. We're running slightly over, but I hope it's worthwhile. Okay. Open data initiatives are not difficult. The difficult part of an open data initiative is finding out what your community touch points are. Work with your community. Please work with your community. Please get out of our cubicles, our offices. Let's get out. Let's be brave. Let's go and visit people who are actually in the community. Plan for sustainability. Yeah. One of the big issues with that exercise was that I really wanted to compress the time. Yeah, I only gave you 5 minutes, so you guys weren't thinking of kind of like, communication to other groups. Yeah, you guys were just thinking about getting that task done. Yeah, so we need to do in the work we do, we need to do a better job doing sustainability. And please experiment. Yeah, open data is a really cool way of allowing you to experiment. Okay, and with that, I'll take any questions. Has anybody got any questions about open data? Yes.
So my question is, with open data, or putting something up as an open data set, does that sort of not solve us, or do we no longer really need to fulfill public records requests on that?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. What we tend to do, or the way I'm tending to view things right now, is that it's actually a way of meeting an initial need. Okay? You know what it's like when people do open records requests. They're annoyed, they're angry, they're convinced government's got it in for them, and it's like, by Jiminy, they're going to show government this time, right? If I can take all that hate and anger and I can say, right, instead of all that, here's your data. Yeah, I'm going to intercept you almost at a better point in the emotional transaction, right? On the other hand, you might still get questions about where they are in that data. So it doesn't completely absolve you, but it goes a long way to do that. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have some tips for selling this to sort of get like administrative buy-in and
Right. Okay, you need more. The zebras don't do it for you. Okay. Let me go back to this slide here. Oops. Focus on the outcomes, right? Yeah. Find out what's important to your elected officials. Yeah. IPRA, Inspection of Public Records, if you can deal with that, with some of those requests, that's also a really cool way of selling it. Internal efficiencies, if you can say, hey, look, I can actually stop people picking up the phone call and building up muscles there, doing the same thing over and over. It could also be, how do I make something better? Yeah, one of the drivers for the city was putting the bus data out there, and we did that to allow a different way of interaction. Yeah. So there's lots of ways of doing it. Generally, it falls into you're either going to be saving money or you're going to be making new opportunities. And really, it depends on your unique community as to what works, what doesn't on that one. Yeah. You can also say that there's a great press conference for the mayor. That always works. Okay. Any more questions? Yep.
A lot of the data that we have is actually from the state of the federal government. Do you just link to that data, or do you actually publish it yourself for your community?
That's a really good question, because that comes down to data ownership. Generally, right now, we will only publish what we own, as it were. We will make sure that data is accessible somewhere else and then link through to that. Yeah, it's probably just better, because then we don't get into kind of like any chains of custody. Agency X changes stuff over there, and then Agency Y has got an out-of-date version and it goes badly.
Can I
Yeah.
jump off that? We have an interesting situation. I'm not sure if everybody's got it or not, but FEMA has actually given us a bunch of map and flood data and are making us publish it.
Yep.
We don't own it.
Flood exemption.
Is this something that should be thought of as part of open data, or is it something?
So FEMA flood exemption certificates and all that kind of stuff?
The stuff that I know are firm maps and deep firm maps.
Okay. That's a good question. Again, it depends if you think you're going to be able to get any use from it. Maybe it's not one of the ones you start with first of all, unless you know you've got demand for it. We certainly publish FEMA flood certificates because the insurers like to see that kind of information, and they can actually look up a house and say, yeah, that's got this certification. Okay. Yeah, so we will in that situation, and that's an interesting example where we do actually use PDFs at that point, because the certificate's actually in PDF format. So we'll link through to that PDF. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
You brought up a good point about, we have in San Diego County, we have an organization called Tangents, which is a GIS hub. Mm-hmm. They take all the county assessor information and push it to us.
Right.
And we're trying to change that whole concept, as opposed to them every week pushing information. We want to be able to just say, pull it from them.
Yep.
Someone goes in there and makes a query.
Perfect.
Using their data. What are the risks that we need to kind of be aware of? Because it's not our data, but we're presenting it on our site, so citizens believe it's ours.
Yeah, we've gone through the same kind of thing, and in a way we kind of like backtracked a little bit and retrenched and said, look, we will only be responsible for the data we're putting out, because then I can go, if there's a problem with that data, I know which neck I need to go choke on that one, and pardon the analogy. It really depends on what the local dynamics are. If your regional group isn't going to do it, that kind of like gives you a bit more of a moral defensible position to kind of like publish it on their behalf. But on the other hand, if they own it, you might want to check with them and say, hey, we're going to do this. Yeah, and see, yeah. And again, negotiate, discuss, compromise. Yeah.
So really, if we've got buying from them that they're going to maintain even if they say we're going to update it every 2 days,
right,
we can post that as a notice.
Right.
This is updated every 2 days.
And so my question then becomes, look, if they're going to do all that work, why don't they host it so that you can pull it from them?
Well,
yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get to. Is
yeah.
Just make the data. Don't create the maps or anything.
Perfect.
Just give us the data. We will consistently.
Much better way of doing it. Much better way of doing it. Any more questions?
Okay. Kind of random,
data project for your city?
We went live with 13 open data. We actually built off the transparency website. So that was back in 2009. We succeeded at that, and so you know what it's like in government, you better have a plan B, right? So we started thinking about kind of like, how can we, transparency tends to be very much reactive stories. Yeah, the gotcha stories. So we started thinking about how can we actually change that whole dialogue and how can we make it more positive and engaging. And so we went live with 13 data sets and one app. And we went live with the app so that the mayor could have something to stand in front of the cameras with. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah.
Have you run into any issues with your systems being overloaded by requests to data? Can you outsource to the cloud or do you locally host?
Right, okay, that's a really good question. It's about outsourcing and scalability. And really what we did, we got lucky in Albuquerque, so I've punted on that one. Because I know what the demand is right now, and right now I can fulfill the demand with the infrastructure we've got. Okay, obviously as we grow, that's going to change. And at some point we will likely go out to the cloud.
Have you ever had any issues with
data sizes? We're now getting to the point 3 years down the line where the data sizes are causing problems. So we're looking at that pretty aggressively to figure out what we need to do. Do we need to slice our data sets up? Or do we need to get more horsepower for the servers? Or do we need to punt this over to cloud? So there's been some good dialogue going on there. We're not quite at a breaking point yet, but it's amazing how quickly your data accumulates.
In terms of your own local interfaces into your data, would you recommend using your open data or any mission critical data?
Yeah, absolutely. Buses, location of buses, if that's not mission critical, you know, we make that available. It gets consumed by Google. It gets consumed by a whole bunch of apps. You know, we'll make it available for mission critical. We've actually upgraded the status of the open data because these, for various reasons, it hadn't been classed as mission critical. Now it's mission critical.
And your systems have never been overwhelmed by any public requests for specific data that your systems rely on?
He says that hovering with his finger over the kind of like, you know, the button that's going to, you know, suddenly inundate me with thousands of URL requests. Not yet. Yeah, because again, if we'd have had a big community with a lot of demand, we'd have scaled things differently to start off with. But we knew what we got in terms of demand. We were able to make a pretty good prediction on that one. Right now, it's kind of like it's steady, it's growing. And actually, the city being the city, we're actually generating more data, and that's causing us the problem, the biggest bottleneck right now. Okay, any more questions? No? Anybody going to stand up an open data initiative now? Okay, yeah? Looking at it? Okay, all right, excellent. You don't always have to get buy-in, right?
Well,
right? Yeah. Proof.
You said it's $1,500.
Yeah, proof of concept, right? Okay, so what we're doing, Susan Christopherson asked me to make this available. We've got a Slack community of interest around open data that's going to be part of NAGW. So if you want to fill in your email organization, she'll add you to the Slack channel. I'm going to be joining that as well to talk about kind of like, you know, build a community around open data. And look, if you've got problems, you know, we're family. We can talk about them. Right? Okay. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much.